This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by the Authority brand family of herbicides from FMC. With 3 proven herbicide options, growers can choose extended pre-seed or pre-emergent weed control designed to fit different weed spectrums, cropping plans, and spring workloads. Talk to your local retailer to learn more.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Friday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. It is great to be here with you today. Oh, big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast as well. Really do appreciate it. It's Friday, so I can guarantee you a bonus. And we got a bonus of the bonus today. We're going to have not only our RealAg Issues panel discussion, but we're also going to hear today from Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. So don't miss out on that. Lots happening in the cattle and the beef markets. So if you're listening on Rural Radio 147, download the podcast so you don't miss Ann's update. Indeed. Okay, so we got Kelvin, Heppner, Lyndsey Smith standing by. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got to talk about this Gordie Howe Bridge. President Trump threatening to basically, maybe we don't need this USMCA. We got 40 different farm groups in the U.S. saying, wait a minute, we love the USMCA, and they've formed a coalition. We've also got more details on these AAFC cuts. We've been talking about the past number of weeks. I was on the road. Lyndsey was on the road. Kelvin was on the road this week. There's just, when we're on the road like that, there is a lot to discuss and talk about because we're engaging with you, the Real Agriculture audience, and we greatly do appreciate it. We've also got today a product spotlight with ADAMA as well. So there's a lot on the docket here. This is an action-packed show, and it's been that kind of week, and we'll bring it all to you. If you have any feedback on today's show, we would love your perspectives, your thoughts, your opinions, the burr under your saddle. You can do that by sending me an email. It is shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call or text the RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. 855-776-6147. And when we are on the road like this, highly encourage you, go to RealAgriculture.com. Okay, we can't get it all into this show. There's a lot of interviews. There's a lot of things that we do that don't make it into this hour-long program every day. Okay, so ways to do that. Go to RealAgriculture.com and you can do your scrolling and searching. We got this new little AI tool called Search Scout. If you go to the search, you can ask it questions. It'll provide you with links to stories where we talk about that question and get it answered. So there's that. Also, you can be one of our email subscribers. RealAgriculture.com/subscribe. Western Canada, Eastern Canada, cattle, just the agronomist email that goes out. The Mind Your Farm business email. If you're looking to upgrade your farm management, we've got an email for you. So lots to chat about, and just bringing you all the kind of content that we can on a weekly basis. And it's a busy little beehive over here. For sure. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we got the RealAg Issues panel, Lyndsey, Kelvin, me, standing by right after this. And welcome back to RealAg Radio. And we're joined right now by Corteva's Portfolio Marketing Manager for Seed Applied Technology, Chad Garrett.
We got to win the start. Otherwise, it's an uphill battle throughout the rest of the season. We got to protect that germination right off the bat, because that determines our population, what determines our head count, kernel count, and that's yield at the end of the day. Number one, you got to start with quality seed. First and foremost, Lumicin Lux starts protecting your seed from the moment it's treated, specifically against those seed-borne diseases. Lumicin Lux provides the best and broadest protection, no matter what the season brings. In all our trials across Western Canada, we saw a 6 bushel advantage over current treatments, not the untreated acres. Pretty significant performance from whether it's being early, cool and wet potentially, later, hot and dry. We need to protect that seed year-round. Contact your local Corteva TM or your local retail. We've got our handy Corteva Canada Field Guide app from your app store, and then, of course, our Canadian site, Corteva.com.
Since 2009, the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has been providing relevant and timely agronomic advice to anyone involved in canola production. With over 15 years of video content on YouTube, the Canola School has been producers' go-to source for canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. The Canola School is brought to you by BASF and InVigor Hybrid Canola. Check us out on YouTube or at canolaschool.com.
Let's get rolling here with the Real Ag Issues panel here on this Friday. You know, with deep roots in agriculture, MNP's Ag Risk Management team helps producers protect their bottom line through smart, proactive risk planning from AgriStability and AgriInvest to tailored private insurance strategies. MNP's Ag Risk Advisors simplify complex programs and build customized plans that fit your farm. Go to mmp.ca to learn more. Okay, let's bring in the Real Ag Issues panel. We got an all Real Agriculture event here today on the Issues panel. Up first, Lyndsey Smith coming out of Ottawa, Ontario. Lyndsey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I have no complaints. Grievances, but no real complaints.
Yeah, exactly. It is for you, I suppose. It's good to be home. I think for all of us, we were out and about this week. So it's been a busy one. Lots happening. Lots of announcements, lots of new nuggets of information we got this week, and just lots of handshakes and hellos, and a lot of love for this Friday Issues panel that I took in this week. And I said thanks to everyone. So shout out to
the
everybody.
Audience. Yes.
Yeah, lots of love for the Issues.
I like it like too. Us as panelists. We're like very kumbaya. Yeah. We're just
we are mostly, unless you tick me off, and then
it's a daily occurrence. To the audience, just so you know, just being fully transparent. Also joining us is Kelvin Heppner. He is in Altona, Manitoba. Kelvin, how are you doing?
Doing well, and I think Lyndsey summed up the week well. I had the chance to get out to Crop Connect conference in Winnipeg this week and catch up with a lot of people, and I'll echo what she said in terms of I said thank you to a lot of people who said, I always enjoy listening to the Friday show, either on Sirius or on podcast, and try to listen every week, that kind of thing. So thank you to everyone who, it's good to see people in person, and I always appreciate those kinds of messages.
Absolutely. And just remind everybody, there also is shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which
also good shows.
Agronomy though.
Kelvin, how dare you?
Kelvin, that is outrageous.
I'm sorry. I do enjoy agronomy, and we got some good agronomy interviews at Crop Connect this week.
Good.
We'll have up on the site.
I think the way we line up is pretty good. Monday is all about agronomy, which Kelvin and I have basically exported to Lyndsey to take care of. And then we got Tuesday, Wednesday, which is just a whole bunch of stuff, like what's happening from an issues perspective. It can be sort of a hodgepodge sort of approach, what's top of the news. And then we got Thursday, of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire, which is awesome. I hear a lot of feedback from people in terms of they love the Thursday show. And people we're talking to, and Lyndsey, we've been talking a lot about how if somebody we're looking for some new a fresh crop, so to speak. We're not trying to get rid of the old guard. People have been doing it for a while, but we're looking for some fresh faces and trying to keep. We need a freshman class is what it says.
Right.
We need.
Yeah,
and
it's you know what? Yeah, it's not a heavy lift, but it's really nice to have a few more names in the hopper, if you will. Like to get that geographic representation across Canada, maybe even a little outside of Canada. And hey, life is busy, and we can't always go back to the same people, and it just gives us lots of options for options per province. So yeah, if you're interested, let us know.
I have been hearing from people that are interested. I love when people sign up their neighbor. That's awesome.
That's my favorite.
I always ask, does the neighbor know? But we've got some new people from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Illinois, Oregon. So yeah, keep the names coming. And you can do that by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Okay, Kelvin, what's the update to the AAFC cuts? I think this continues to be kind of the big story that a lot of people are discussing in a lot of the hallways of these meetings across the country.
Yeah, as we're into meeting season, I think this is the big thing that is kind of overshadowing a lot of the discussions, or is even ending up being the discussion that happens. Is what does this mean? What does this mean for our organization? What does this mean for my farm? Those types of questions are being asked all over the place, and we're not getting a lot of answers yet. At this point, we did see the House of Commons Agriculture Committee this week on Tuesday commenced a study. They're going to spend at least 4 meetings calling witnesses forward to dig into this, what the impact is of the cuts to AAFC. We, of course, found out a couple of weeks ago in late January that 660 some staff positions will be cut as part of this process, as well as the 7 research facilities across the country will be closed. And this week we saw the deputy minister and some of his associates before the House of Commons Ag Committee. There were a few nuggets that came out of that, as Lyndsey alluded to. We found out that at least 27 scientist positions will be eliminated as part of these cuts. There are other scientists that have been offered, or have been told that their role will be closed at their location, but that they have the opportunity to relocate. So we've yet to see how many will take the relocation option. I know some of them have a timeline here, a deadline coming up by when they have to kind of make that decision. Am I willing to move my family to continue this research somewhere else, or am I going to look for a different career path, that type of thing? The department is looking at finding about $155 million in savings through the next couple of years, and there was discussion about whether this is reversible at the Ag Committee, and Deputy Minister Lawrence Hansen, said that they are not reconsidering this decision at this point. We saw Andrew Scheer from the Conservatives join the Ag Committee because Indian Head is in his riding, and so he has several pointed questions about that. There's many different aspects here. Basically, what we're seeing, though, the government is certainly, and we heard this from Minister MacDonald in that scrum with Lyndsey as well on Wednesday's show. We heard it at the Ag Committee as well. They're certainly using it as a talking point outlet. I'm not sure whether it will work in reality, but they're talking about transferring more of this work to universities, to academia. Universities aren't exactly in great shape right now unless there's more funding to come, and so I'm not sure how much of that is reality. But in general, we're seeing consolidation in research. We're going to see pork specialization in Sherbrooke, Quebec, for example. Dairy sounds like at Laval, beef at Lethbridge and Swift Current, that type of thing. So I think at the start of the year, we talked about 2026 being a year of consolidation, and I think that is playing out in AAFC as we start to get more details here. But yeah, again, a lot of the nitty-gritty as to which program specifically, which researchers are affected, that has yet to come out.
Lyndsey, do you think it's the right strategy for the criticism to be about what's been done? Or should the criticism be about we don't know what's going to happen going forward?
Oh, it's a good way to frame it, in that I think what is, we suspected, but I think it's becoming very clear, is that it does feel like there was sort of we need to cut this much. Here's the easiest way to get to that number. And then it was, now we'll deal with the fallout. As opposed to, here's where we want to go and where we want to get to. It makes more sense, or it's more efficient to do it this way. Let's move these pieces around. It means closing of this and whatever. So it does feel reactionary. It does feel, even in the conversations that we had, the questions I got to ask of the Ag Minister and of Cody Blois earlier this week, it still does feel somewhat reactive. It doesn't feel like the amount of time and effort put into creating a vision forward was done first, and then working within, this is what's going to have to change. And obviously in creating that vision and creating, what needs to happen, you would have taken into consideration, you've got to do it with fewer dollars. But to me, it does feel very reactive, which means you scramble and you probably end up agreeing to things or potentially dropping things that shouldn't be. We lose time. We lose, potentially. Are we going to have a lot of this sorted out by the time field trials need to get put in? Maybe not, right? And this is right. Go ahead, Kelvin.
Yeah, it's the middle of February already. Yeah. That is one of the big questions: is what happens with field research this year, and are there gaps that need to be filled? Commodity groups are asking that as their funding partners in a lot of these research projects. Is this going to happen this year? Where are things at? And that was one thing Deputy Minister Hansen talked about. There's a 12-month timeline for wind down of scientific activities before they will start the divestment process of these facilities through Treasury boards. So, but yeah, there's lots of gaps like that. Like you said, Lyndsey, the timeline, there's probably no good time of year to do this, but spring is fast approaching.
Right. It's sort of like farm succession. Wow. When planting's over, then we'll discuss it. Oh, jeepers, when harvest, we got to get the crop in the bin. And so, it does. Go ahead.
To Lyndsey's point, it feels like the plan here was entirely the outcome that they were trying to achieve with the plan was the reduction target.
Yep.
not what Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada looks like after, what the vision is, what the strategy is.
Yeah.
And that's where industry now is like, hang on. And that's, I think, why we're looking for more communication from the minister and deputy minister in terms of what are the priorities now? What is going to be dropped? That whole strategic review. You'd think they would have had time to do that, going back with the notification from Carney back in May, June last year that each department was going to be tasked with a 15% cut. You'd think there would have been some time for that, but at this point, we're not seeing much evidence of it in public. Lyndsey?
And what we did hear, what I heard this week at the event Monday night with Parliamentary Secretary to the PM, Cody Blois, his advice really was framing so much more of what we do in agriculture as food production versus commodity agriculture, et cetera, in that his piece of advice really was for this agriculture industry, the language that this government speaks, and this is similar to the Trudeau government in a way, that this government speaks in food security, food affordability. That is what will be driving things forward. And that's what will be front and center for this government. And any time that we can phrase things or position things as food and food production and food security, that's going to definitely be seen as, of interest versus other things. To that point, though, exactly that of these cuts and changes to AAFC, we do have significant, like pork, beef, grains, like we have these significant things that we need to remind people are food and where that ends up as, what is that vision going forward? What is the research that can't be done anywhere else or we need done or whatever? Naming those priorities and then of course, yes, working within a lower or a smaller budget, would be the path forward, but it didn't go that way. So now we scramble. And unfortunately, that's uncertainty, that's inefficiency, and that gets us behind the eight ball as far as time.
I do find
there's also opportunity here for revitalization.
Sure.
Sorry,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I just find it disingenuous a little bit from the Conservative side of the aisle, as if they would have never done any sort of cuts. Like both parties
maybe
were
not to research firms in their ridings.
Well, exactly. Right. Well, yeah. Right. Like, I don't know. I am really curious on what happens the go forward. Like, and I don't want to kind of go back through the same rants all the time. That's the critical part here. Like, and I do feel a little bit hypocritical myself if we didn't think through this all the way and we didn't, have a specific plan or how this was all going to happen. And because I've been saying on this show, we got to break some shit. Mm-hmm. And so we're breaking it, but I think we just got to close that gap on what does this exactly, what are we going to do? And how are we going to take advantage of it? How does this make us stronger? Like some of the things the minister was saying to Lyndsey, I can get behind it 100,000 feet. I just need, I need to hear now the how, which is missing. Kelvin, go ahead.
This came up at the Manitoba Crop Alliance annual meeting this week. Jim Wilson, farmer from Morden, Manitoba area, brought it up in the context of plant breeding, how we've been hearing for probably more than a decade how there are cuts coming and how Ag Canada's budget is being tightened and how industry could have maybe even been better prepared for this in terms of this wasn't completely a surprise. And that's where I think there is, for example, on the plant breeding side of things, there's some excitement from parts of the industry about what kind of opportunities there are here if Ag Canada is making changes on the plant breeding side of things. There's also some concern about what that could look like, especially from other parts of the industry. And so I think that's an area where we're certainly seeing, discussions come to a head now, or at least rise to the top. People are like, hang on, we got to sort out this public plant breeding thing if Ag Canada is going to be pulling resources out of that, which they say they're not, but we have yet to see details as to what that will look like or what's all affected there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of plant breeding, FP Genetics brings new seed genetics to Canadian farms, empowering growers to thrive in ever-changing conditions. Visit fpgenetics.ca and join thousands of Canadian growers who trust FP Genetics to deliver innovative, reliable seed genetics season after season. Experience the next wave. Go to fpgenetics.ca. We're back with more of the Real Ag Issues panel. But first, when we come back, we got a product spotlight with ADAMA right after this.
When it comes to pre-seed weed control, one size doesn't fit all. That's why there's Precision Pack Herbicides, a customizable herbicide blending system built around your crop, weed spectrum, field, and tank size. Blends are pre-measured and mixed for accurate, efficient application, delivering the right product at the right rate on the right acre with no waste. And for 2026, new burn-off blends help you start clean against tough grassy and broadleaf weeds. See your local Precision Pack retailer for more.
If you're applying a low-rate N stabilizer, you might be falling for a losing strategy. Low-rate products promise great results, but may lack the potency of higher active ingredient concentrations, so great isn't always what you get. Don't put yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anvol Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca.
While some cereal growers believe a pre-seed or spring application of paradigm-free herbicide is better, others think you get more from a fall application. But what they both agree on is the exceptional broadleaf control of paradigm-free, the convenience of being able to apply in cooler conditions, and its role as an effective resistance management tool. Paradigm-free. Eliminate tough broadleaf weeds before they can become bigger problems. Talk to your local retailer today.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. Joining me now is Ambrely Ralph with ADAMA. We are going to talk about a wild oat herbicide. Tell me all about it.
Hi, Lyndsey. Thanks for having me. Yes, so we're going to talk about Kizado. So ADAMA launched Kizado this past year as an answer to wild oats, which are one of the biggest headaches for growers across Canada. And really just wanted to share a little bit more about what we learned, the innovation behind Kizado, and how to make it work best for farmers in the field. So Kizado, truly something new for Canadian wheat growers. For the first time, growers have access to 2 proven modes of action for wild oat control in their wheat crop, built into one optimized formulation. So the innovation isn't that just 2 actives are present. It's that they've been carefully formulated to work together safely and effectively in the wheat while still being easy to use. And it targets all wild oats, so the everyday susceptible populations, as well as those resistant to Group 1 or Group 2 chemistries. So from a practical standpoint, it fits very seamlessly into the spray season. Safe on wheat, conveniently packaged, 40 acres a jug, compatible with common broadleaves, and easy to clean out of sprayers and chem handlers. So great concept. And then we had it the first year already, right? So the feedback's been very encouraging. Growers had, long-standing wild oat issues, clean wheat fields for the first time that they hadn't before. And many of them are planning to use Kizado more broadly on the farm. So it's a new tool. We love saying new tool in the toolbox, right? And
that's right.
It helps manage those wild oats today while preserving that usefulness of both those chemistries, Group 1 and Group 2, for the future.
So when this has been, let's maybe back up a step and sort of put into perspective just how big of an issue, not just wild oats, but of course resistant wild oats, has been and potentially could be going into the future. But what do you hear from growers on the sort of the scope and scale of trying to deal with wild oats?
Oh, yeah. That's the key, right? We've been talking about wild oats for years. They've been on the top of the surveys from the Prairie Weed Survey program, for the last couple decades as one of the top 3 weeds. And so, I still thinking about Kizado and thinking about wild oats and managing wild oats are a long-term strategy. It's still a long game. Kizado is not going to replace good agronomy like crop rotation, pre-seed weed control, but it strengthens it. It's the best in-crop wild oat tool that wheat growers can have access to now, finally. We know that wild oats are complex, right? They're a funny, finicky weed. They can stay dormant for years. They emerge under the cool conditions. Resistance often shows up in patches rather than entire fields. So it's kind of like that sneaky surprise. And it makes something that's, where scouting the field is super critical. Watching for those areas that green up after spraying or those that don't respond like they used to with chemistries that you were using before. And the unique thing is that, Kizado can make a really meaningful difference in those situations. But it's even more effective when used proactively. Right. Farmers, leaders in innovation and proactiveness and thinking outside the box, hands down. They already know and use and implement multiple mode of action strategies from fungicides, insecticides, and in their crops for wild oats like canola and pulses where they're already doing predetermined take mix partners, right? Kizado finally brings that same approach to wild oat control in their wheat safely and effectively. So we know, like you said, wild oats have been an issue for a long time. They're going to be there. They're in your wheat fields. you usually only get one really true effective in-crop pass, right? Like you can try to plant a lot of different things, but when you're thinking broad spectrum, you usually only get that one chance to really effectively control them in crop. And you want that biggest return on that pass. You want the ROI. You want to use it as effectively as possible. And really, Kazado, we found, is delivering on all three of those.
Okay. Now, so exactly that, as you've hit on, there are indications that potentially you've got not just wild oat issues, but potentially resistant wild oat issues.
Right.
For growers who, already know that they're dealing with resistant wild oats and they want to add this product to the lineup, what should they consider? What do they need to know?
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So we know that there's a rise of resistance to certain chemistries over the years, and in Canada, we're very lucky to have the resource of the herbicide-resistant wild oat resistant action committee. We have the prairie weed surveys across. We have lots of great insights into what the history has kind of been. We also have great access to resistant testing and the advancements that have been happening in that space as well, right? So we're lucky that way. Plus, farmers are really good at record keeping. They know and they notice a lot of things on their farm. So what we have seen is, the proven resistance strategies that they've been using for decades. Keep using those crop rotations, the seeding strategies of date and time and rates, pre-seed weed control, multiple modes of action. But that missing part has been where they've been able to utilize that tool in with Kazado in those grassy weed control in wheat. So it feels that gap that you're kind of saying, like, this is something that you can use. You can have that peace of mind. It's delivering two modes of action at the same time, reducing that chance of plant survival, right? Easiest way to control resistance is to kill the weeds and prevent the spread and the continuation of them, right? So you don't want to pass on genetics. You don't want to keep the problem rolling forward. And this is a way to help control weeds that are present at the time of application, because both of these actives are foliar. They're applied at effective full rates of each active ingredient that are in the combination. They target different sites within the plant. That's that multiple mode of action. And those traits, those are really critical for that effective resistance stewardship. So farmers are using lots of different ways to manage wild oats. This is another way to be additive into that approach.
All right, Ambrely, and where can growers go for more information about this product and how they can best use it this season?
Perfect. Yeah. So ADAMA.com is our go-to website. And on that website, you can also find information to contact our reps directly. Our team has been investing a lot of time and effort and really, digging into the nuances of Kazado and wild oat resistance across Canada. And more importantly, they're the experts. They are the ones that know how to optimize how to use Kazado and the right recommendations for things like staging, water volume, which additives, which broadleaf take mix partner, managing those stressed environmental conditions that, show up once in a while. And all of these ways, growers can reach out to our team directly and agronomists can reach out to them through that website access or through their local retailer. And they can help them walk through their specific situations on a farm or for their growers.
All right. Ambrely, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Lyndsey, for having me.
All right. We'll be back with RealAg Radio right after this.
Co-op has been beside local farmers and ranchers for generations. With Western Canada's largest fuel network and a team of local agronomy experts, Co-op is built to keep your operation moving forward. With deep local knowledge of the factors affecting your farm, we're ready to provide trusted advice in the field and on the ground. Count on Co-op to support your entire operation from season to season. Co-op, here for your farm, here for your family. Visit your Co-op Agro Center to talk to a team member today.
The future of Canadian food is strong. New markets and new opportunities are met with new innovations and new innovators. And FCC is ready to help the next generation of innovators like you make your mark, with financing tailored to your needs and resources to help you keep growing. You're ready. So are we. To get started, visit fcc.ca/youngfarmer. FCC. Dream, grow, thrive.
Lyndsey, have you ever thought about what the benefits are of deplasant technology?
All the time.
Well,
keeps me up at night.
It is something to really think about as we head into the 2026 growing season. Let's talk about Oxbow. The latest innovation from New Farm, a versatile broadleaf in-crop herbicide powered by Duplasm technology. That's it right there. Oxbow is your workhorse on resistant kochia and other tough weeds. You can find out more by going to newfarm.ca. I hate kochia. That's a
Amen.
statement I'm going to make. Do not like it. Do not want it. And that's how I know you feel too, everybody that's out there. So let's knock it off the board. Let's get rid of it.
It was a standing room only for a presentation on kochia controlled by North Dakota State University, Brian Jenks at Crop Connect this week. So.
Oh, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What did he say? Were you in the room?
Not a lot. Yeah, I was in the room. Not a lot of good news when it comes to resistance issues, and that's where some of these products come in. Could become useful tools, increasingly useful tools. Talked about how glufosinate is there's resistance to glufosinate showing up in several U.S. states now. That's in water hemp, but kochia, it's a similar story. He kind of had a water hemp kochia back and forth talk, and there's a lot of similarities between the two when it comes to increasing resistance and difficult to control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything else you heard at Crop Connect then, Kelvin? I heard you ran into Jacob Shapiro.
Yeah, Jacob was the keynote opening speaker, and chatted with him in person afterwards. I always appreciate listening to his podcast and the Frontlines podcast that you do with him, Shaun. So good to hear him in person, and I think he left a lot of people thinking with some deep thoughts about what the world holds in terms of geopolitics going forward. I'd say the AAFC cuts were kind of overhanging, like I said, a lot of the discussion in the meetings that were happening. Certainly a lot of researchers at Crop Connect and agronomist types that are wondering what this means for some of the research side of things, field trials. We all know tight margins are a thing that are on the minds of a lot of crop producers right now. So I'd say that was also a theme. And it was also the 5-year anniversary for Manitoba Crop Alliance. It was 6 years ago at Crop Connect that the vote went through to amalgamate bring together the 5 different commodities under one umbrella organization here in Manitoba. So they celebrated their 5th anniversary with some custom-made beer and bread from Cereals Canada. So everybody left their meeting with a couple cans of Manitoba Crop Alliance beer.
Any talk about canola joining Manitoba Crop Alliance? Is that discussed at all?
I didn't make it to the Manitoba Canola Growers AGM. It was yesterday morning. I didn't make it to it, but I don't think that there has been much discussion.
Yeah.
I did chat with Jonathan Hodson, the chair of Manitoba Crop Alliance, and he says they do continue to get inquiries every now and then from other provinces and other places talking about the benefits of amalgamation and what the process was like and what kind of, he said now that it's their 5th anniversary, they've kind of gone through some reflection as to what has worked and what hasn't and that type of thing. And we'll get that interview up on RealAgriculture.com here in the next couple of days. But I don't know if canola is at the point right now where there is any active discussion about that happening.
Yeah. Lyndsey, you mentioned that you were in downtown Ottawa for that Kane event, the fireside chat between Kim McConnell and Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, Cody Blois. You also went to the Ag Day in Canada Ag Day meeting that's the next day hosted by FCC. What did you hear there?
Yeah, so I guess it's just the time for anniversaries. This was the 10-year anniversary of Canada's Ag Day. I don't know what year this is for the Future of Food event that Farm Credit Canada puts on, but that was on the Tuesday, on February 10th. There was over 800 people in attendance. There were a couple of breakfasts that kicked off the day, so that's where, for those who heard the scrum with Minister MacDonald, he spoke at a breakfast meeting, made some announcements about expansion of the agri-marketing program, opening that up to small and medium-sized businesses, so that happened there. And then, of course, Future Food, always, a fantastic gathering of people. The minister did hop in at lunch and talked about the $5 billion in leveraged funding. So they've now got 20 organizations that have joined FCC in committing to investing in Canadian agriculture, in moving things forward on the capital side. So that announcement was made at over the lunch hour. And then FCC's Justine Hendricks rounded out the day launching the Let's Grow Canada platform at the end of the day, which I'm still gathering some information as to what it really is. If it's got the sort of, the ag more than ever the sequel kind of vibe to it. Lots of very feel-good stories, videos. I've seen some people sharing them and those sorts of things that were at the event. Go ahead, Kelvin.
There's a well-produced hype video for Canadian agriculture. It's like a Hockey Night in Canada opening video, or a Monday Night Football opening video kind of thing with a tragically hip soundtrack, which well-produced by whichever agency got hired to do that.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, I'm curious what the rest of this campaign is about.
For the record, I like hype videos. I wanted to create a Real Ag hype video one time, and Kelvin, if you remember correctly, I think you were in the room. Lyndsey thought it was a dumb idea.
You know what? Probably because
I don't remember this.
Probably because
I'm on your side, Shaun.
You wanted me to be in it, and I'm like, do it yourself. It was
probably Nickelback soundtrack or something like that.
Yeah, or Metallica.
Or
Metallica.
And we wouldn't have, it would have been Metallica, and we wouldn't have got the rights to it. So no, it is. I'm still sort of trying to get a sense of what the plan is for the site and exactly that, Kelvin. There's pre-produced videos that are sort of meant to be shared, and then there's also some storytelling and those sorts of things that you can check out. So so that was announced on Tuesday as well. So it was a busy couple of days, that's for sure.
Is there downside risk? So I'm just matching that campaign, which is very food oriented, like it's back to kind of the feeding the, not feeding the world, but feeding Canadians vibe, tied to what Blois said in terms of you got to talk in the language of food. Is there risk in
one of Jacob Shapiro's take homes? One of Shapiro's take homes right now too is that farmers should be talking more about growing food, not commodities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's the risk, Shaun?
As we try to push for regulatory red tape reduction, if everything's framed in food and not the practicalities of farming, that becomes more challenging as if it's not enough challenging already. I don't know. I'm really curious, because some farmers do produce food and some don't. They do produce a commodity. And there's also the opportunity from a domestic, if you think about biofuels, we also produce fuel. And so if we're going to,
there's risk there.
Exactly. I kind of pump the brakes a little bit on trying to put this romantic, hey, we're just going out there every day to slug it out and make sure the Canadians are fed. I don't know about that.
I think some of that is geographical or regional across Canada, across North America too, how close you are in terms of your farm's proximity to a major consumer market. In Western Canada, where we can't grow high value crops and market them to major metropolitan populations nearby. It just doesn't work. We need a commodity that is easy to transport and that type of thing.
But Ontario's a bit of a different world, right?
Well, sort of.
Yeah,
but
Ontario's different.
If I'm in the Okanagan Valley, I've got a bunch of apple trees and I'm crushing some cider. I'm making food. 100%. Yep. But if I don't know, not everybody is, and so are we cornering ourselves?
Dr. David Cole has been talking about this as well, including Jacob's getting lots of shout outs here, but on Shapiro's podcast recently,
he has been shouting out
a lot of leading farmers.
So we're
he's been. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Actually, in that podcast with Dr. David Cole, I believe he mentioned your name, Shaun.
He did.
But Dr. Cole talked about how a lot of leading producers right now across North America are finding additional revenue streams for their farm by getting into the food side of things, marketing those oats as oatmeal in local grocery stores, or cheese, or different types of value add products off the farm, kind of as another revenue stream. So maybe it is a direction. I'm just not sure that all producers can go in that direction. I think you got to be in the leading edge and be the kind of the first to market. There isn't room for everybody to have their farm's oat brand in grocery stores, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
interesting.
And it requires a whole other skill set and interest and time commitment, et cetera, to pursue that. So not everyone's well suited to it. But I mean, I suppose to the extent that, a rising tide boils all ships kind of idea is that, if you've got those that are really connecting with what farmers do to food on the table of Canadians, to Shaun's point, we still have to recognize that we're an exporting nation, and that just becomes food in other people's kitchens. It's just not necessarily a Canadian one. And so I don't know. I think we have to sort of we do have to navigate it carefully in that we also are still need to be in business. We can't cash warm fuzzies at the bank. It doesn't work that way.
Optimism is not collateral.
Ooh, I like that.
I just think like, okay, hey, agriculture, geez, you're in here last week talking about how, everybody produces food, and now you're here this week talking about how we need to have amendments to the CFR and produce fuel. Those two things are not, like, it has to be all the above. Like, I think there is a lot of different uses for the things that are being produced on farms and ranches across this country on a daily basis. And it is food, but it's also not just food. And I think we're doing the pom-pom thing a little bit when we all just sort of, we're being a little bit disingenuous, I think, in terms of our promotion of what we're doing. It's a little bit more expansive than just that. And that's my opinion. But everybody, you can send me yours, shaney@realagriculture.com. We got to take a break, but I do want to tell you about the Crops Convention coming up in Toronto here, March 10th through the 12th. I am looking forward to that conversation with Ambassador Hoekstra. That is going to be very interesting. This year's theme is Trade in Transition. That's a bit of an understatement. And includes a fantastic lineup of expert speakers and great networking opportunities, as always. I was in Edmonton last year at the meeting. It was fantastic. Took my daughter. We had a great time. Check out what the Canola Council of Canada and the Canada Grains Council have planned, and you can register at canadiancrops.ca. We're back with more of RealAg Radio right after this.
Ah, the lovely signs of spring.
Until... Take on hard-to-kill weeds early on with what they fear most. Fierce Easy and new Volterra cereals. Up to 8 weeks of extended weed control in pulses and weight. Less in-season pressure. More flexibility when it counts. Before the crop, before the chaos, spray Fierce Easy and Volterra cereals. Own the ground. No mercy. Visit newfarm.ca/soilactive.
Whether you're running a farm operation, in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag and food together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Calgary on March 8th, 9th, and 10th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio for the RealAg Issues panel. Shaun Haney, Lyndsey Smith, Kelvin Heppner here, all with RealAgriculture. And we're having lots of fun, lots of issues that happen this week. Hey, manage your weeds early in your canola cereals and pulses with, like, this is quite the lineup. Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, Blackhawk EVO, all powered by this Duplasm technology. Keeps on coming up. Advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed burn down from New Farm. You can find out more by going to newfarm.ca. I think my favorite of all those is Thunderhawk.
It's pretty good.
It is good. It just sounds like it takes care of stuff. I like it. Okay. Trade. A lot of ways we could go here. I guess Financial Times this morning is reporting that the Trump administration's planning to peel back at least a portion of some of the steel and aluminum tariffs to deal with some affordability. We had earlier this week the Gordie Howe Bridge situation, which is very interesting. And a lot of talk about President Trump floating this story out that he may just not be interested in the USMCA, period. I guess, Kelvin, you can go whichever way you want on any of those, or maybe there's more that I just haven't listed. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's a lot of noise around this, and increasingly the credibility of some of what we're hearing from the president is deteriorating here because of how many threats he is making and what he's saying on Truth Social. The track record now is coming to the point where he's cried wolf too many times. I think, was it on AgriTalk, Shaun, that Jim referred to, well, maybe I shouldn't spotlight Jim, but now I am, that he's becoming that uncle who you kind of only, believe half of what he says now, or a quarter, like take everything he says with a grain of salt. And that's, I think, what we saw, of course, this week with Trump's Truth Social post on this Gordie Howe Bridge and how it's going to result in China taking hockey and the Stanley Cup away from Canada. That's just an absurd post in many fronts. Almost every single line of that post was something that's easily disproven. And I think by the end of the week, even Trump, I'm not sure if he believed it or if it was just what Howard Lutnick told him after speaking with the owner of the competing bridge from Michigan to Ontario. So I don't know. It's just absurd all around, silly when it comes to some of this stuff. And it's getting to the point where I think a lot of countries around the world, including Canada and even lawmakers in the U.S., are not necessarily looking at what the president says. It's losing credibility. You have to look at the people around him, what they're saying, and what the constraints are in reality when it comes to the economy and political processes. And that's what we're seeing when it comes to tariffs and some of the walk back on tariffs. And as inflation is becoming an issue, they talked about the Financial Times today talking about how the cost of drink cans and pie tins is increasing, and that's something that the Trump administration is concerned about with midterms around the corner and affordability in focus. So we're seeing this walk back, and I think we have to pay more attention to those constraints around the president than what he actually says on social media.
Well, again, what I don't understand is not all countries are created equal. You can deal with some of those aluminum issues, like the increased cost of cans. This is incredible. This is what was predicted. So all you got to do is don't take the tariff off Canadian aluminum. You can leave the tariff on all the other countries if you want. Like the steel is like different than aluminum. Like those are on different tracks, although they're constantly put together. We did see at the end of last week those 40 different groups forming a new coalition promoting the benefits of the USMCA. We also had another letter from former farm leaders in the U.S. talking about the benefits of the USMCA. So there's momentum there. We also had Congress this week in the House. It was passed.
And more beef coming from Argentina, and more beef allowed in from Argentina as well. So everything is trending in the direction of, hang on, the consequences that economists said would happen here are happening, but to
be fair, not to the same degree. Like this, like if you were to go back and roll the tape,
it depends how you measure it. But Trump has benefited immensely from cheap gasoline and cheap energy. His policies have contributed to that, but that has masked a lot of inflation and helped that CPI number stay down. And we saw a lower than expected CPI today, again, partly due to gasoline prices being lower. And so I think that has masked inflation for manufacturers. The PPI is showing more substantial inflation happening. And it's not necessarily, well, it gets into complicated economics here, but it's not necessarily that prices go up. If your wages go less far because your income is declining or there's layoffs and that type of thing, that's the alternative cost of tariffs that isn't necessarily resulting in higher prices in the grocery store.
Yeah, I am very curious as to the review path here, because I really feel momentum is on the side of maintaining what is there.
For the most part.
Yeah. And I think that, as I've said, and I got to write this column, but if this movement from America first to affordability first, I feel like we've had that nailed, because that's exactly what is happening. You're going to hear the beef market update and the bonus of the bonus here on RealAg Radio. And Annie and I talk about how, in reality, I question why they're doing the import of the Argentine beef, because a lot of the people in the market are saying it's not going to have the impact on bringing prices down because it's really an insignificant amount. So why go through the process of it in the first place if you're going to get the negative headlines of doing it and it's not going to produce the impact that you're desiring? That I really question, and I can't make heads or tails of it. But affordability is the king, and Lyndsey, I believe very firmly that is advantage and leverage for Canada and Mexico that they've really been searching for.
Well, and to add to that, yes, please write that column, because I would like to run it in tomorrow's email. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But nothing like a little pressure on a Friday afternoon. But importantly, I think what I'm encouraged by on the American side, and hats off to our American counterparts for really articulating the value of the USMCA deal, where they see that exactly that it keeps the cost down, it makes for a more efficient system, and it keeps the cost down for Americans, for their food products, and that's the important part. My fear is that Canada right now is sitting in a relatively good spot, and it sort of does feel like we just need to like keep things on an even keel going forward and put our heads down and get this done. But there are still irritations, and my fear is that we're going to let something like the TRQ allocation on dairy become a sticking point when it does not need to be. So my hope is that our negotiators, etc., recognize that there are still going to be some discussions that have to happen. There's still going to be some things we need to agree to, but that the momentum is definitely on the side of this being a review and a renewal. So let's get it done and just keep our heads down and get it done and not choose something to grandstand on or throw the baby with the bathwater, etc., on TRQ allocation. Like, let's just get it done.
Yeah. And it's a review. Now, I don't know if there's a timeline even to that review, Kelvin. It's not just like Lyndsey said, renewal. I don't know if it's necessarily a renewal. It stays in place. It's just reviewing the framework. And
there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation out there, especially this week, about what happens, especially and when we hear from Jameson Greer or President Trump about, and here in Canada, our media love to repeat those threats of them saying that we're going to just let the deal expire. Well, it doesn't expire for another 10 years, till 2036. So even if they don't reach a renewal or an agreement this July, it still stays in effect and just goes into an annual review process until 2036, unless one of the countries actively says, we're out, we're leaving. And in the U.S., that would require congressional approval. The president can't do that by himself, and so Congress would have to approve that, and makes that a much, much more difficult prospect to see that happening. And so, yeah, the U.S. leaving is not a very likely scenario. It's more going to be about how they review it in the process, and Trump would have to convince Congress that that there's reason to leave and that it would be beneficial for their constituents to leave if he wants to go that way. So that's where, to me, a lot of this is hot air, and I'm not sure Canada is increasing. Like, we've gone from a position of, I'd say 6 months ago, 10 months ago, we were concerned about really high tariffs, Canada facing across the board tariffs, to now I'm not even sure we'll face any across-the-board tariffs, even low rates of across-the-board tariffs coming out of this, where the U.S. is going. We're increasingly hearing voices from Congress, from, you mentioned the 40 agriculture organizations, chambers of commerce in the U.S., saying we need to renew this. Like, let's tweak it, but let's. So I don't know. To me, it's increasingly in Canada's favor here. What is playing out, in many ways, the Trump administration is doing it to themselves.
Well, and although the words towards Canada have been harsh, the actions towards Canada have been relatively light in comparison to other countries. And now, if you're in the auto sector, you're not feeling very good here right now in Canada, or if you're in the steel sector. So, like, it's not. But in agriculture,
those are
absolutely. And I think, when Trump says, "Hey, I've treated Canada really fairly," his words. There is like there is truth to that relative to some of the other countries. So we're following this really closely because it's a critical component of agriculture, the cross-border nature, whether it's beef and pork or just many of the canola, many of the commodities. It's a big factor. So, hey, we are going to have a bonus segment today, so stick around if you are listening on the RealAg Radio podcast. We have a bonus of the bonus with the beef market update with Ann Wasko. Who doesn't want to finish off their week with Ann Wasko talking about cattle and beef markets? I tell you what. Okay, if you have any feedback, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. And thanks for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. See you again next week. Cheers.
Thank you for downloading this RealAg Radio podcast, brought to you by the Authority brand family of herbicides from FMC. With 3 options for extended pre-seed and pre-emergent weed control, Authority herbicides help growers start clean and stay ahead. Visit your local FMC retailer to find the Authority herbicide solution that fits your farm.
Oh, that was so fun today. We had a good issues panel. Lyndsey, you were right. There was a lot of love to go around.
I know. I'm telling you. Well, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. It's in the air. You forgot, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Nope, there's still time.
We have plans.
There's still time, everybody.
We have plans.
Okay, good.
After all of the time on the road, I said to Trish, we can do whatever you want as long as it involves not going to a restaurant.
I hear you.
I feel like
you just I have
since January 1st, all I have done is eat out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you could listen to any of like the health influencers, gurus, doctors, any longevity experts.
Yeah.
That is not conducive to.
Yeah. Don't do what Shaun does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I have this system that I judge the price of a restaurant, like the overall cost of a restaurant based on what like an 8-ounce steak costs. It's a good little system. Okay. It works.
Okay.
Works.
There you go. Anyway.
Things are expensive out there. Like eating out at restaurants is like, you know, you think about like Kelvin was out this week, you were out and about, I was about like, it's not cheap, especially if you want to eat decent. Like it's easy to eat out cheap, but that comes.
But then
with,
it's not real food at that point. Well, I gotta tell you, the food at the Future of Food event, as it should be, it was top notch, like incredibly good. Yep, it was really good. I will say, unlike other agriculture conferences, though, way more like meat substitute options than you usually see. So that was also interesting.
Like what?
There was like a weird like fake meat hash type thing instead of the beef or chicken options, which I did not eat because I don't like fake meat. But there was a yummy pesto marinated tofu that I totally ate because
that's fine.
Why not? Yeah, I love pesto. And
I hate pesto, but if you grill tofu, it's
super. Yeah,
you can do it. But
pesto, tofu is just tofu. Tofu's not trying to be something else. The whole like fake.
They own it.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. It's just tofu. It's not trying to be anything else. And I respect that.
That's actually a really. I've said this bitch before. Turkey. To the turkey industry. I think it is offensive how restaurants take your really great product and a turkey burger is a great option on a menu. I happen to really like turkey burgers.
Yeah, it's not done well though. Yeah,
it's way too much salt. The restaurants think that turkey doesn't have a taste, and so they pump it full of salt to the point where it's like I probably didn't exactly take the healthier turkey option or whatever you want to phrase that. Because now I've got to drink about 6 gallons of water to bring my body back to some sort of equilibrium.
Kelvin, can you fix that? You're like turkey adjacent. I think more restaurants need like turkey legs. Legs, like big drumsticks on the menu. That's what they need.
Turkey's an industry that's doing some soul searching, I think, in terms of what the future of the industry is. It's
I could see that.
Meaning like
its scale is becoming more
difficult.
difficult.
And Thanksgiving. Yeah, like it's too focused on the holidays.
Yeah, they need to diversify their demand, and I'm not sure that they've had success in it. And then also on the avian influenza side of things, it's really caused a lot of havoc on supply chains and processes and logistics there too. And so, yeah, you have this whole industry built around the fall, winter holidays, and I know, they've had some success getting into the sandwich stores and burgers like you alluded to, Shaun. But it's curious where it goes in the future.
I think there should be rule around. If you're going to use our product, here's what we want you to.
It has to be delicious. Stop ruining.
We need more red tape, right? More regulation. food end users use it. Hey?
Nice, Kelvin. That's 10 points to Kelvin for that one. That was a zinger.
I was thinking about going to the Phoenix NASCAR race this spring, and like maybe think of that with the drumstick, like the big, where the drumstick.
Well, isn't that like a Disneyland thing?
Same size
they call it like
head.
Yeah, they call it like a brontosaurus bone or whatever. I actually think that's what restaurants should do. Like they should market it as like dinosaur meat and just like lean in 100% on the like Flintstone, like caveman side. I think it's a great idea. Like why not? Anyway, like it's comically large, a turkey drumstick.
They are.
Like lean in on it. Anyway,
it's also
there's probably more important things to talk about. What's that?
Well, no, we're producing food. We're just doing our part here.
That's right.
AAM, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, came up with the January numbers. Now, just to backtrack for a second, and I got a bunch of questions that I sent to AEM this morning. I probably should check if they've responded yet, but got to remember 2025 compared to 24, machinery sales in Canada were pretty flat to the year previous, except for four-wheel drive tractors were down like 23 and change percent. The numbers were way worse in the U.S. compared to the year prior. We got the January numbers this week, and if you were thinking that we were off to a slow start, all the concern about money and all this kind of stuff, combines, holy Dinah. I have the numbers here. In Canada,
400%.
Yeah, 447% higher in January compared to January of 25. So just to put it in units, okay, because I get this question a lot. I use this data in presentations a lot. That's this January in Canada, 115 combines sold compared to 21 in January of 25. That I am curious the why of that. Do you have any theories, Kelvin?
I do. I think, well, it's a small sample size. It's 1 month Canadian market, not nearly the same scale as the U.S. market. But B, I wonder whether we haven't seen some pricing adjustments from the OEMs, and when it comes to some of the machines that rolled out a couple of years ago, trying to move them, trying to get that inventory cleared, and that type of thing. And so I wonder whether there hasn't been some type of programming or price adjustments there. We've, of course, seen the used market where some of the depreciation costs have added up on some of these machines real quickly. And so I wonder whether the new price is reflecting that, and if there's been some adjustments there. Certainly, we're not in the market, so I haven't been price shopping around, but just questions I'd ask, and I'm not sure where you find answers to that, but it would. Maybe our audience has some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But,
so just
I think
so
we'll have to, and also wait until the rest of the year to see whether there's a trend or whether it's just a 1 month blip.
Yeah. Maybe no one buys one for the rest of 2026.
Well, it's not. Yeah.
But it's unlikely. But
here's here's like what really just sort of like gets you thinking. So you had 115 combines sold in Canada in January. In the U.S., the number was 163.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And
I do wonder whether
something happened.
So
I think there's also been some proof of concept around some of these newer in terms of some of these newer combines working on smaller acre farms than what we thought initially they would. So I think there's some of that where people are showing that, hey, my 1,500 or 2,500 acre farm, this combine actually makes sense here in terms of profits here, and labor's becoming more expensive, that type of thing.
Especially if some other farmer ate the depreciation, and I'm
that's just it, right? Yeah, for sure. So so if you are one of those farmers that bought a combine, let us know. We'd love to know what the thought process is there. But like Kelvin, we don't use combines for sheep, so I was not in the market for one. So I did not add to this tally, just so everybody knows.
No, you were out of the market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got another piece of data for you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get a story written on this too. I got a lot to do here this afternoon.
You're gonna be busy. Apparently. Yeah.
So what we have found, I just got to pull it up here. Bear with me here. What we have found is that so I've been hearing from a lot of the audience talking about the ad hoc programming in the U.S. So remember, by the end of February, they're going to roll out $12 billion in a farmer bridge assistance program. Now, this is trying to deal with some of the profitability issues in the U.S. There could even be a second bridge program before the fall, is probably the probability as well. We ask Canadian farmers with our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, we throw in extra questions. And this is one I've been interested in because I've been hearing from audiences and presentations and people who listen to the show that'll say this, why doesn't our government support us in Canada like the government does in the US? So, the idea of dollars equaling we support the industry kind of thing. Right. So I wanted to kind of get a better sense of this besides just the anecdotes. And interesting. So we had 5 options. So what we asked was, should federal and provincial governments in Canada pursue the same kind of ad hoc assistance for farmers that's being provided in the U.S.? Okay. Now, 11% said, I'm unsure or I need more information. So now we're dealing with about 89% of the farmers. We had 2 yes options and 2 no options. Essentially, 31% of Canadian farmers said, yes, I think we should. 18% said, yes, Canada should match the U.S. with similar ad hoc support to protect competitiveness. And 13% said yes, but only if the support is targeted to the most financially stressed sectors or regions. So there's 2 different kind of levels of that. Interesting. 31% saying yes. Lyndsey, this has not necessarily been the strategy of the Canadian government, and nor is that the majority. And I got to dig into some of the demographics on the regionality and age and farm size and all that kind of stuff. But maybe higher than I thought.
Well, and we do have different systems between Canada and the US as well, which I think is important to, and I mean, granted, there will be many people in Canada who will also tell you that, we know that we have business risk management programs. We know we have disaster relief programs. Doesn't mean we all fully understand how they work or their full value, or if we need to change them. There's people that's essentially their full-time job at this point, is trying to figure that out. But we do have disaster relief and these sorts of programs that do get triggered by the provinces potentially in times. So we have sort of set programming that could potentially take the place at times of ad hoc programming. So specifically, we're looking at, though, do farmers feel we need more ad hoc programming when things go poorly? Now, I will say there's also this sense of looking forward. We definitely see for 2026 that profitability is going to be very hard to come by. So it's sort of hanging over our heads as to, what this year ends up shaping up to be. But it's not often, though, that from the Canadian perspective. So I'm not entirely surprised that it's 31%, because it also, and that we have 11% that say they need more information, because honestly, I think we're sort of more used to, disasters like drought, et cetera, happens. We do get some funding that comes in through through our programming. And I don't know, I just feel like we are sort of, the only time we've really heard of it in the last little while was with canola because of the tariffs from China. And prior to that was with the fertilizer tariff on Russian fertilizer coming into the east part of Canada. That's really the only 2 times I can think of very recently that there was
BSC in 03, where there was a lot of...
Well, okay, but that was 20 some years ago, Sean. So I said recently.
I think of it
recently to me, I know, but recently is in the last 5 years. So
there was also the hog bailout in 20.
That's true.
And somewhere in the 2010s.
Compensation for market access on the USMCA negotiation, would that qualify?
That is sort of it's, I don't know. That to me is a whole other class of, because that's a whole other discussion.
Well, okay, so just to follow up here, because there's a point that, I've been talking to several people about is, so 21% said, no, we don't want the same kind of ad hoc, because ad hoc assistance distorts markets and creates long-term dependency. So that's 21%. I would be interested in, because, again, in speaking to a lot of U.S. audiences and speeches, that might be fairly close to what is thought of in the U.S. I hear, it's not I think sometimes there's this Canadian perception that everybody's all in on some of this programming. They're not. I hear it regularly in some of the after or some of the questions during. But here's some pressure I think the government's got to deal with. 37% said, no, I don't want this same kind of stuff, because government should fix existing business risk management programs instead of issuing ad hoc payments. That's 37%. Now, that's the largest of all the answers. And Kelvin, I think that's the real pressure point here. There is a lot of concern that based on the profitability issues for the cropping sector right now, that the current BRM model with agri-stability and other, it's not going to do the job. The question is, are we up to the changes to be made to make it work, whatever that actually looks like?
Well, we know the business risk management programs, the cuts that we've been talking about at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada are not affecting business risk management. In fact, the government made some enhancements last year after the Carney government was elected in spring to enhance some of the business risk management, but certainly just tweaks around the edges. And we are in this consultation period right now on the next ag policy framework for Canada, what it should look like, and that includes business risk management programs. It's always the biggest topic in the room when it comes to those meetings between ministers from all the federal and provincial governments. So this is the time to have those discussions. At the same time, government expenditures in agriculture on BRM, I have a hard time seeing the purse getting larger or even being adjusted for inflation, as it hasn't been for many years. And so I don't know. It's I think a real tough case in reality to expect our business risk management programs, because when we say fix, we often mean increased funding for. There needs ultimately it's not just about finding efficiencies or better matching. It's about more funding to backfill the hole from lost income opportunities. And so that's where I have a hard time seeing it happening in reality. Sure, the programs can be improved. There's streamlining and effectiveness, things that can be changed. But yeah, in terms of increasing the overall pot for it in this environment, especially, this is where we have a scenario that could potentially, I don't know, does this hurt what the programs look like in the future if all of a sudden we have a massive increase in agri-stability payouts and all of a sudden those budget lines for government the next couple of years look really big and we're going into a new ag policy framework? Our government's going to be weary about meeting the same percentages and those types of targets?
Well, hey, but if you're going to be in this game, it can't be like if you've structured the math or the structure of the programming correctly, and there is a big payout based on hardship, that's the program doing its job. If you're going to judge the good or bad,
publicly subsidized. It's publicly subsidized. That's the challenge.
Well, then you got to be brave enough to go in front of the voter and say, this is what we're doing this. Because, again, hey, they're producing food, everybody. Exactly. We said they're important. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, but that is the position that the government of the day has to take is, here is how we maintain food security and actually have local Canadian food, is we have programs in place to support Canadian agriculture. And that is the speaking point. Like, every country in the world has some form of support for its own agriculture industry, some of them to the extreme, some of them very little, but there's a sliding scale. And so essentially, yes, as a government, these programs are created that it's true. I mean, they can cost a lot more if bad things happen, etc. But also that is the inherent cost of having a Canadian agriculture system that is supported by these programs.
That is where Blois hits the nail on the head too, I think, in terms and even Carney in speech in Davos and all of the talk about a country needs to be able to feed itself. That I think is maybe the strongest case for public subsidization of this. But even a province of like Saskatchewan, where agriculture is so well respected by people, by politicians, by government, they have regularly over the last number of years the premiers had to government has had to justify why a crop insurance payout budget line was so big and the impact that had on the provincial books, that type of thing. So as these payout numbers become bigger, we can probably expect some headlines around that as to look at how this is affecting the federal purse. Of course, there are much bigger expenditures out there.
You've mentioned that Davos speech a couple times today. You're a big fan of that speech.
I mentioned it several times. So
I think it was Kelvin.
Here we go. We're in the bonus, so we can throw people under the bus.
Yeah.
It was a good speech, everybody. I don't care what.
Also did not do her shots of coffee that she promised she would do.
I know,
before.
actually, it's because it went cold. I did actually before we recorded this, I said that I would take shots of coffee every time Kelvin said absurd, and he said it at least twice. But my coffee went cold, and I'm not going to do shots of cold coffee. So sorry. But thank you, Kelvin, for saying absurd. It's one of my favorite words.
I'm trying to scale back caffeine intake. I'll just tell you, it's not going well. With you? It's not going well. Okay. I think if you're drinking 2 pots a day, it probably is. You should question your life decisions.
What if it makes you happy, Shaun? If it makes you happy, have the 2 pots of coffee. Life is too short.
Can I apply that to other things?
I guess, but I'm just saying. Sheryl Crow said it best.
Sometimes there's long-term pain, though, for short-term happiness and long-term.
The science says that caffeine's fine, unless your heart is beating like a hummingbird.
You can't sleep from 2 to 6 in the morning because you had
Yeah. Stop ruining my fun.
Okay, I got a question for you. This is like
we have to go.
in the moment life choice. We do have to go, but and we got to get to Ann Wasko.
Yeah. Jay needs the show.
I am fairly certain I was in a restaurant last night where I saw a sports celebrity.
Who was it?
I don't. I would feel dumb if it wasn't real. I think I saw Josh Naylor last night in a restaurant.
Okay. I think I know who that is.
Canadian
ball player. Canadian ball player.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Plays for
page.
plays for the Mariners now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And his brother both played in the leagues. Ontario boys.
Okay.
Sitting there, and I didn't do a lot of research to do some I don't know how many kids. He was sitting there with a lady and a young child. So he looked a lot like him, and I walked by like 3 times. My wife was like, you should go say hi. I'm like, absolutely not. No way. I am that person where no, especially like maybe if let's just assume it was him. If he's sitting with a group of like 2 buddies, that's different than sitting with
your family.
Yeah. Okay. So you agree with me, Lyndsey, then?
Yeah, I do. I think everyone's entitled to their own lives, right? And sometimes I think we feel entitled when people are celebrities or live a very public life. Shaun, you must get this all the time. That, right, realistically, no, I think in family, like if someone is in a more professional setting, let's say, then like that is part of their job. And if you're going to ask for an autograph, like then absolutely that's appropriate. And yeah, if somebody's maybe there with a couple buddies, whatever, then maybe. But if it's family, I think that's kind of give them their space, and that would be kind of rude. So I think you're right.
Yeah.
I do think, though, you should definitely sneak pictures and send them to your friends to decide if it is, in fact, the celebrity or not.
Oh, because that's
okay. That's totally fine.
Not an invasion of privacy at all.
No, just of him, not of his family. But what if it wasn't even him?
Well,
so you have to find out.
Trish is a big talker because we were at a lounge in Vegas one time, and it was Miranda Lambert that was sitting at the bar with a friend of hers, and my wife loves Miranda Lambert, and I said, go just say, hey, I'm a fan of your music.
Yeah,
she chickened out. So she's a big talker last night.
But you didn't go back in.
Kelvin, how do you handle this when you run into celebrities in Altona?
In Altona.
Yeah, so many.
I would probably, in general, have the same approach as you, Shaun, where, you probably just say, hey, I saw this person. I didn't necessarily go and talk to them and that kind of thing. Although I have a good story about a good friend. We were out at a restaurant, and one of the waitresses thought he was an NHL player. And so he played it out all night that he was the NHL player. He couldn't pronounce his name the NHL player's name when he's like, yeah, I'm this player.
Yeah,
but
totally.
He didn't even know how to pronounce his name. But it
that's fantastic.
So it works. So maybe this was the real Josh Naylor. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Well, so okay,
use it to the advantage.
Sort of like a bridge to that, Kelvin. We were on a baseball trip one time, and Trish and I and a couple, 3 other couples we were in Havre, Montana, right on the High Line there. And I know we got some listeners from Havre, because I hear from you when I'm speaking at events in Montana. We were at this place called the Shanty, which is basically a bar that is a shed. And I am being very complimentary.
Okay.
And we were in there, and one of the locals said to my wife, you kind of look like Sandra Bullock. To one of my jackass friends that was with us said, well, yeah, because they're sisters.
That's so great.
There you go. That's exactly
what you do.
This went on all night.
Mm-hmm.
All night. And all you had to do is Google search.
Yes.
I was like, we will not get out of this place alive when someone does a Google search and it says Sandra Bullock does not have a sister.
But in the meantime, you probably got great service at your table.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe even free drinks.
People buying us drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
If I remember correctly, at about 2 a.m, he actually had Trish sign the guy's arm with a pen.
Oh, perfect.
Trish Bullock.
Yes. Trish Bullock. Yeah, exactly. Good for her.
If you have any celebrity sighting stories, we would love to hear from them. We're off on a tangent. You know what? We got to get back to some serious stuff. We're going to do the beef market update. Want to thank everybody that we see in person at all these events. Kelvin's at Crop Connect. Lyndsey was at the Cane and the FCC event. I was at National Farm Machinery Show this week in Louisville, Kentucky. Honestly, it's awesome to interact with the audience, and we appreciate more than ever those interactions, and we get to chat about some of the favorite things that we do at Real Agriculture, not just this show, but all the other stuff as well, and we greatly appreciate those conversations and engagements. So if you do have any feedback, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Lyndsey, have yourself a great weekend.
You as well.
Kelvin, all the best to you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Monday is like a holiday, or not, like for some, but not all. It is like across the country a holiday.
I think it's like
sort of
provinces that aren't. So yeah, it is.
Very confusing. Very confusing.
Okay.
I'm going to be in Maricopa, Arizona on Monday for Canuck Day.
I am looking so forward to the feedback from that. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
The registrations are coming in. We're going to have a lot of fun. Rob Syke and I and Darren from 33.7, as well as Derek Squire, is going to provide a market update. It's like a farm meeting at the research farm there down in Maricopa. It's going to be a lot of good times. Everybody, have yourself a great weekend, and we'll chat with you next week. It's time for another episode of the Beef Market Update. There's a lot happening in the cattle industry, and here to fill us in on all of it is Ann Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. And it's great to chat with you again.
It is good to be here. Good to see Shaun.
Okay, so I'm fresh off of CattleCon. I feel like that was quite the meeting. Record attendance, 9,300 delegates from really around the world, not just the U.S., but around the world. I guess as we sit here, the midpoint of February, coming off of a meeting like that, what are we seeing right now in these markets? Like, it just seems like we've been at the top here for a while, or what feels like kind of the top. Would you consider this kind of toppy, or do you think we have room to go higher from here?
Well, I think, as we set up heading into the second quarter of 26, which is really where our smallest supplies, from what we see right now anyways, reside. And that's typically when we move into grilling season. I think from a seasonal perspective and all the rest of it, I sure wouldn't bet that there still is some more height as we get into that time frame. So these are great markets. We're in February, which is typically one of our slower demand periods. It's not showing up in cattle prices, but again, that's largely due to just where we are in terms of how tight supplies are. Take, for example, cash markets this week. Well, first of all, in the U.S., it's been really quiet. We're talking Friday morning, expecting to see some trade today. There was a wee bit of trade in Kansas earlier this week at 243, which is steady, but there's a lot of belief that it could be a little stronger. We did see stronger prices in Alberta this week on the dressed market, ended up coming in that $5.20 to $5.25 delivered area. That's another $3 to $8 higher than last week. And Shaun, if somebody's watching the Fed market in Alberta since the first of the year, and like you say, we're 6 weeks in, every week it just ratcheted a little bit higher as we've gone along. So markets have been just simply solid for this time of year and not showing signs of letting up just yet.
Yeah. And I guess seasonally, you referenced this already. What do we typically see at this time of the year?
Well, often markets will settle back, and at this point in the year, well, two different things. The futures markets are trying to predict and kind of show what they expect to see in the second quarter. So they'll often be stronger. But the cash markets usually take a little longer until we get right into March and certainly into April to make their start to show their highs. So you get kind of two different movements going on, but it's moving along and stronger than I guess you would expect seasonally.
Yeah, and through our coverage of CattleCon that everybody can find at RealAgriculture.com, the way I would describe a lot of the breakdown is rancher. It seems there's some confidence. There is some another cycle, another turn of profitability. That supply situation does not turn on a dime, as we've discussed. The cattle feeder, there's profitability potentially out there, but it's on a thinner margin. There's a lot of risk in the market based on the cost of the inventory, and then they're on the margin. And the packer's still searching for profitability. Is that too simple of a synopsis, or how would you see it?
No, I think that that's where we're at right now. And okay. Like you say, the cycle is appearing to be turning very slow, much slower than our last cycle in 2014, 2015, where, we made our highs and then, pretty aggressive expansion happened and prices turned fairly quickly. That does not appear to be the cards. And I think Kevin and everybody at CattleFax explained that pretty good last week on your on your interview. And again, some of the reasons that might be behind that. Why is it slower than last cycle? Why is the retention of heifers slower? I think you've also talked to Matt Makins on the weather piece. I hear that everywhere in terms of that drought worry. And so, those factors still keep bubbling up to the top.
Yeah, I think there is still lots of reasons and proof out there for major drought worry, western half of the U.S., lack of snowpack, and in the Western Canadian prairies. People look out their window right now, if you're in Alberta, Saskatchewan, especially in the southern parts, you're not seeing a lot of snow on the ground. And that's a concern, and that's a component of whether or not I'm willing to expand and retain some heifers.
Yeah, and maybe it's still come. It's only the middle of February, but it hasn't been a very cold or snowy winter by any stretch.
Yeah, what are we seeing on the beef price front? There's obviously a lot of talk right now about affordability, and one of the things that has been expensive at the grocery store, of course, is beef. But made very clear at CattleCon, even though beef is expensive, the consumer continues to choose beef, even with those high prices.
Yeah. So 2 pieces I want to talk about, so we don't forget, is our retail beef prices did come out from StatsCan in Canada for December. And prices in December were actually down at the counter they had a record high in November. So a little bit of easing there. Nevertheless, the entire year of 2025, we saw beef prices in Canada 13% higher than 2024. So that's been the case all through the year. The high happened in November, a little bit off in December. Just to compare what's going on with competitive meats, pork prices for the entire year were up 4%. And chicken prices were up 5%. Now, we did see chicken prices climb as we went through the year, and we'll see how that impacts as we go into 26. Both pork and chicken are expected to see increased production in 2026. So more competition. The one area that we're really tight on, of course, is lean trim. And both Canada and the U.S. have, record prices of lean trim, or that manufacturing cow beef, whatever we want to call it. And so that is attracting a pile of imports. And on the import story, of course, we heard late last week, U.S. Increasing the Argentinian tariff by 4 times. So 80,000 metric tons, 20,000 per quarter through 26. This is all lean trim that all fits in that. We'll see what comes. Argentina is still considered a small supplier to the U.S. This is more product, yes, but a very competitive marketplace. Most of Argentinians' beef goes to China right now. So we're going to see. The world is short on this lean trim, so products moving around. It'll be interesting to see how the dust all settles when that comes to fruition, but that's where we sit right now.
Yeah, although that increase in Argentinian TRQ on lean trim, it's grabbed a lot of headlines. It seems to be a lot of people don't think it's going to have that much of a market impact, which also begs the question, if it's not going to have the market impact that is desired, why do it in the first place? Because of some of the negative headlines I think the administration's getting for it. But it's not, we got to be careful, because not all beef is equal in the sense of what it is, right? And so this is not ribeyes at your local steakhouse. This is ground beef or stuff, things like that, correct?
And so, yeah, exactly. And the U.S. and Canada are short of that product. We don't.
So why? Is that because it's cheaper and people are trying to still get the beef protein? Like, why are we so short?
Because consumers eat that much ground beef. That's our biggest consumption piece, right? So that's what consumers eat the most of. Half of beef consumption is made up in that category, and that's not what we produce, right? So we produce lots of high quality beef, which is great from an economic perspective, but it means we do need to import to meet that demand for ground beef in North America. So whether it's from Australia, New Zealand, which we just got the January data for Canada for imports, and that's the 2 big increases that we've seen for Canada in terms of lean trim, but that's also where this Argentinian beef fits in, where the Brazilian beef fits in. All this product's going to move around and fill that missing supply, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. We talked a lot about the ranch and some of the issues at the grocery store related to retail and the packer. Cattle feeders, how are they looking their prospects as we head into the mid part of February?
Well, they're certainly wanting to see these markets remain very bullish and very strong, and have the futures market offer some opportunities as we go forward. Because right now, with where these feeder cattle prices are and with where the futures markets are, it isn't working. The margin isn't there. So certainly that's been a concern. That remains a concern. But if markets keep moving higher, that's what they're going to need, because it's a negative scene right now.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is not getting enough attention, but it's coming up more and more when we get to the Q&A part of a keynote speech, is people asking about currency. And the US dollar has a real bearish tone to it. There's a lot of thought that the administration wants to see a lower valued US dollar. The question is, what happens with the Canadian dollar for a lot of our Canadian listeners? Does it peg to the US dollar and sort of follow it down relative to European currencies? Or do we see it increase in value relative to that US dollar? Obviously, if you are an exporter, I know which one you're cheering for, but I think it's something that a lot of people are watching more and more here.
Well, and watching and just all of the other factors, around what, Canadian economic data and indicators, and what's going on here, jobs reports, housing starts, and all those kinds of things, interest rates, and just where we play with that U.S. exchange rate is important to watch. And I think there's more, it's not clear to me exactly which direction we're going to head, or which direction the U.S. or how much the U.S. dollar moves as we go through this period of time.
Yeah. And thanks so much for joining us here today. Really do appreciate it. Have yourself a great weekend and happy grilling.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Shaun.
For more coverage of what's going on in the cattle industry, not just markets, but also production and policy issues, make sure you go to RealAgriculture.com, and you can also subscribe to our cattle email that comes out every Monday by going to RealAgriculture.com/subscribe.